Hello, I'm Bob Henderson with Discovery Channel, and I'm here to share with you the wonderful world of birth and development with my three student scientists, Keegan Jenkins, Noah Morrison, and Will Harris, third period. Thank you, and let's begin. Before we get into the concept of fertilization, ovulation occurs. Ovulation is the releasing of an egg from the ovary. After the releasing of an egg, the egg travels through the fallopian tube for about 5 to 7 days, where there is a chance that it can be fertilized by sperm. If the egg does not get fertilized, it is discarded through menstruation. Usually only one egg is released during ovulation. To get further into detail of the process of fertilization, millions of sperm are released. Usually only one is able to attach itself to the egg's membrane, like the one shown in the picture. But in order to enter the egg, the sperm must basically release an enzyme that digests the membrane, which can allow it to finally enter the egg. And after that, the sperm must finally, in order to completely form what is called the zygote, it must release its 23 chromosomes and bind it with the 23 chromosomes of the egg to finally form what I mentioned earlier, the zygote. After fertilization, the zygote basically divides and it travels down the fallopian tube. While this happens, the corpus luteum creates progesterone and estrogen. The hormones increase the number of blood vessels in the lining of the uterus and finally get it to receive the fertilized egg, which allows it to reach the uterus. The zygote undergoes cell division and creates a hollow ball of simple cells called the blastocyst. After 7 days, the blastocyst enters the uterus and attaches or implants itself to the simple uterine wall. This implantation creates 3 layers: the ectoderm layer, which is skin and nervous system, the mesoderm layer, which is simple organs and internal tissues, and finally the endoderm layer, which develops into digestive organs and the digestive system lining. Finally, these structures form what we know as the embryo, which begins pregnancy. Next, we will talk about the 3 trimesters of pregnancy. A trimester is roughly 3 months, and pregnancies are divided up into 3 trimesters. Through the 9 months, there are several hormones which maintain the pregnancy. These include estrogen, progesterone, and the human chorionic gonadotropin, which is produced by the placenta to help maintain progesterone levels. Thyroid hormones also help regulate the embryos. In the first trimester, embryonic stem cells undergo determination and differentiation, which will form the specialized tissues and organs. During the first trimester, which is weeks 1 through 12, the following events take place. The heart, brain, pancreas, kidneys, and liver start to form. After week 5, the heartbeat can be detected. The arms and legs begin to develop. Individual fingers and toes begin to form, and cerebral hemispheres begin to form. The lenses of the eyes also appear, and external sex organs show the sex of the fetus. At 9 weeks, the embryo is a fetus and is only around 3 centimeters long, but is starting to look like a human being. As we move on to the second trimester, development continues and more physical activity occurs. The mother can start to feel movements by the fetus flexing its muscles. During the second trimester, the following events occur. Most joints and bones have started to form. Wake and sleep cycles are more regular. Brain begins a stage of rapid growth. Eyes open and blink. Fetus breathes in amniotic fluid. This strengthens the lungs. The uterus also continues to expand until it reaches 4 to 5 times its original size. This happens as the fetus develops. At the end of the second trimester, the fetus is about, let's say, 30 centimeters. Finally, we reach the final trimester, the third trimester, and the fetus starts to look more of what we know as a human child. The fetus has now reached its largest size. When babies are born, they weigh about 7 to 9 pounds. During the third trimester, the following events occur. Bones are growing and hardening. Lungs complete development. Fine body hair and scalp hair grows in. Lastly, the fetus turns and head is facing down, ready to be born. Once the time has come for the baby to be born, this lets you know the fetus has fully developed, and the placenta can no longer provide. The placenta connects the mother and the embryo so the embryo can receive the nutrients and the oxygen it requires. The amniotic sac also stops cushioning the embryo. There are 3 stages to the birth process: dilation of the cervix, emergence of the baby, and expulsion of the placenta. The amniotic sac surrounds the embryo until birth. Now we move on to the first stage, dilation of the cervix. What occurs in this stage is contractions putting pressure on the walls of the cervix until they come apart. This enables the baby to enter the vaginal canal. The baby can't leave the uterus until the cervix widens. If the cervix does not widen or dilate properly, the doctor must perform a C-section. Emergence of the baby. This stage of birth is normally the hardest for the mothers and the babies. Since it's easiest to give birth to the baby while the baby's head is first, contractions of the uterus must happen in order for the baby to rotate so his head is toward the cervix. The expulsion of the placenta. The final stage occurs directly after the baby is born. The placenta detaches from the wall of the uterus as the uterine contractions continue. During this stage, the umbilical cord, which was connecting the embryo inside of the amniotic sac to the placenta, gets cut a few inches from the abdomen and eventually shrivels up and falls off, and is formed the scar we call the belly button. Ovulation is the releasing of an egg from the ovary. This is when the egg travels through the fallopian tube, where it has a chance of being fertilized by sperm. If fertilized, the joint egg and the sperm becomes a zygote. This zygote develops into a fully formed fetus in about 38 weeks. This is when the 3 trimesters of pregnancy occur. A trimester is a period of time roughly 3 months long. After these 3 trimesters finally begin, the birthing process can finally begin. There are 3 stages of birth, and these include dilation of the cervix, emergence of the baby, and expulsion of the placenta. After these 3 stages, the mother and the baby can finally be together.